we are here because God gave us a word. That's good enough for us. That's terrible for people.
Yeah. The world don't like that.
Terrible for worldly people. Let me rephrase that. It's terrible for people. It's terrible for people who
don't got faith.
Who Zach just gonna go just say it all. It's terrible. That's a terrible way to live for people who don't believe God. That's the best way I can put it. People who don't believe Him.
That was kind.
I'll put the kind way Zach said. People who ain't got no faith. People ain't. For those who don't believe God, they can't fathom it.
Right.
But if we live by faith, I'm not supposed to fathom everything. I'm supposed to trust Him.
That's right.
As long as I know I've heard from Him, then I can do it. Doesn't mean all these other things are all worked out. So it's like, in that sense of not meaning other things are all worked out, it's like, well, we finally got here. Oh, but this was interesting. Let me back up real quick because this is a very important part. Okay, Jerry Savelle and Jesse Duplantis have this conference that they do annually for Christian bikers. And
are those pastors?
Yes.
Okay.
And well, they are evangelists who travel just like Kim Copeland, but they each have their own foundation, like church that's, brick and mortar as well. And they have they're a pastor that they appointed to take over the church, and they still come in every now and then to their own churches and preach, but they're mainly traveling, right? And so they have this conference that they have out there. And Jerry Savelle is the one I mentioned the song you were talking about when I came in, Feather Flow. I'm driving in the rental car now. This is the same year of moving, but this is after God told us about moving, and I'm driving in the rental car because they booked me here to come rap before each session started when they would preach. So I would rap and then pass the mic and then walk up and preach. This is 3 days and like 5 or 6 sessions. And so, but before this event in 2019, I'm driving around in this rental car. And I'm like, I got 2 hours, man. I got time to kill. I'm going to drive around to see Texas. That was my thought. I'm just going to see Texas. I'm driving around. The presence of God fills the vehicle, the rental car, right? And so I'm sitting there. I'm like, I'm looking around the rental car. When I just realized what just happened, his whole tender, loving, sensitive presence was just so thick in the vehicle. And I'm sitting there and I just start praising him and start worshiping. And then he spoke. He said, "This is home." And this was a few months after he talked to us about moving. So when he said, "This is home," my only and first response was, yeah, this is home. You past few months, you've been telling us this and we've already prayed and ready to take the next steps. And then he spoke again and made it more clear. He said, "No." I said, Crowley is home. The difference is not knowing just Texas, where in Texas.
Right.
Not doing ministry. What kind of ministry are you called to have? Right? If you want to be effective and have fruit that remains, like Jesus said in the new covenant, I ordained you so that you bear fruit. But then after that, he said fruit that remains. So he wants us to always bear good fruit. And then so I'm in that car and I heard that. And then he said, Crowley is home. Here's another side of the story that people don't hear. And I want to share it on purpose because people need to hear both sides. So we get here, we finally pack up the U-Hauls, we make them drives, and we get here into this guest house for 6 weeks. We're at a guest house at this sweet family just let us stay in. They said, they told us in Tennessee, I was doing this tour, and they told us in Tennessee, they said, anytime you're in Texas, you have a place to stay. We have a second house that we built in our backyard. It was a nice property. And they said, if you ever need it for rest or you traveling through whatever, your family can stay here. And they do it for ministers and preachers and stuff. And so I thought about that. We moved. I said, yeah, we can stay there until we find our house. And then so we're in that house. He said, it was 6 weeks, but somebody ended up coming sooner than what they thought. So we had to get out. Now, this is like week 4.5. We get out, go to a hotel for 4 weeks. So for about 8 weeks, we are rejected from every house that we ever tried to get into. And I'm in the hotel and I'm out in the parking lot praying because God's word is specific. And the part that I let slip was the excitement of being in Texas. We're here. Let's check out Dallas area. Let's check out Fort Worth. Let's check out all these places people keep saying, Godly or Joshua, all these places. All this is new to us. We get there and God reminded me. He said, "Didn't I say Crowley is home?" But he said it with a stern voice, and I said, "Whoa!" It didn't register. I let that slip. Because we finally moved and got here. So we was in excitement, going to church, meeting people. God's already making connections, already doing amazing things that never happened before. But in the heat of all of it, I did something that I always preached against. And that was never let your excitement get out in front of your faith. Because then you'll get out here thinking you're doing, and now you're doing and trying instead of just being led and fruitful. And so he said, "Didn't I say Crowley was home?" So I left the parking lot of the hotel quickly went into the room. You know, that hotel got that small little desk counter. And I put my laptop right there. I said, Hannah, that's my wife, Hannah. I said, open my laptop. Find any house for Crowley. We're not doing no tour of the house. We're not looking through it. It's the first one that's available. We're going to get in it. The next day we moved in.
Whoa.
The next day they was like, they kind of was like it can happen today, but it ended up being the next day. Put the rest of the stuff we had back in the U-Haul, drove right off. We in the house, keys, everything, and it was the most easiest, most effortless thing because
it was God.
Because it was him, and it wasn't, it just wasn't working. We using our faith. You can use your faith as much as you want, but if it go against the will of God, it ain't gonna work. It's like Keith Moore said. Pastor Keith Moore, he said it one time. He said when he first started in ministry and his ministry growing, they got a prayer line now, so people can call the prayer request line, and get prayer for whatever they want prayer for. This lady called and she cried on the phone. She walking down the street to work. She got mugged. Somebody took her purse and they bruised her just a little bit, but not like a whole lot. But still, that was wrong. And she cried. She said, "I quote Psalm 91. I'm reading my scriptures. I believe God. I love Jesus. I'm always reading Psalm 91. I'm always speaking life and speaking the word over him. Like, how could God let this happen to me?" So he got quiet. When he got quiet, I love the way Christine Kane puts it. She calls it leaning into the heart of God. Like basically what Jesus did. Step away, listen clearly from the Father. And the exact words were, "Ma'am, what did God tell you that morning?" The word that God already told her was, "Don't go that way you normally go. Instead, go this exact different direction way to work today." She said she heard it, read Psalm 91, plead the blood of herself, safety, all that, and still did it. That's why it still happened, because the word that God gave her were clear instructions on what not to do for this specific moment. And so we can use our faith and plead the blood and do this, but if we already heard from him and go against what he said, that's like us for a moment stepping outside of his umbrella of protection. Because we now step outside the will of God trying to do something. Just like us with the house. He said Crowley is home. And I was in there rental car. His words, Crowley is home. We're trying all these places, rejections, in hotels for 4 weeks. I gave that hotel 4 weeks of my money, right? And so you think about, look, 4 weeks, right? And so you think about all this, and it's like we go through things that we don't have to when we let things slip. And that's what, not just New Covenant, also in the Old Covenant, Joshua 1:8. We meditate on it day and night. And why it says to observe, to make sure we do what's written therein, to make sure we're doing what's written in the word and we don't forget it. And then he said, then you'll make your way prosperous and then you'll have good success. We wasn't having good success. We wasn't making our way prosperous. Why? Because not my wife, I take responsibility. I let that slip from the excitement. Right. And so we can't let the excitement get out in front of our faith. And then we'll always see, things should be happening more often, because we all have that moment in our life where we feel like something should have happened by now. At some point, whether it's family things you need or health or job or whatever, or finances, to where change should be happening, things should be getting better. And there's some times where you're not thinking about it and it'll go off in your spirit and something should be happening by now. It always goes back to what was the most previous thing God said precisely. And let's see, did we do that? And then sometimes there may be one or two things you realize I started, but I didn't finish, or I didn't even start. And then so we go back and this instantaneous is like, see, God's saying, look, we're not just doing things and it works. We're doing what he says and it works.
And if this is your first time here, we would love for you to subscribe and check out other previous episodes if you can. Go and subscribe on all platforms. And if you want to support the ministry in any way, you can go to ilikebirdsministry.com and you can support and give there. You can buy a shirt, or better yet, you can buy my first book that I wrote about my mission trip to Africa, where we ministered there for 21 days to the widows and kids. And we wrote a fun experience so you can feel like you're there with good humor and heartfelt sentiment all throughout it. So thank you so much for being here. Truly appreciate you, Terry, once again for coming back. And we'll see you guys on the next one.